Welcome to the Feminine Waters podcast, where we discuss dating, relationships, celibacy, and the divine feminine.
Welcome to the
Let's
Feminine
dive in.
Waters podcast, where we discuss dating, relationships, celibacy, and the divine feminine. Let's dive in.
Where we discuss dating, relationships, celibacy, and the divine feminine. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Feminine Waters podcast. I'm Chiquita.
I'm Tiffany.
And we are here today with a Femme Touch episode. So today we're going to be talking about being raised as an educated, independent woman.
So I feel like this is something that's primarily just in the Black community, I would say, just taught to be independent, taught to be just education. Whereas in other races, I feel like I think they're taught to get their education, but it's always like, you're going there also to get a man, like, your MRS degree. And even before that, earlier, I think girls are talked to about relationships and, how to look for a good man and how to, I guess, be the kind of woman to attract a man. We don't have those conversations like at all. And I was just talking to my friend about this the other day as well, where it was the same for her, and she's her Liberian. Her parents are Liberian, and she's like, "Yeah, it was just like, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do this. Just go to school, focus on school, and then jump a few years." And it's like, why don't you have anybody yet? And it's like there was never any in between. There was never any like education about getting into relationships.
Yep, so true. I know for me, like, I always heard the buzzwords of marriage and college since I was a little kid. Like I can remember being as young as like 4 years old and hearing those words, Oh, like when you go to college, when you get married. So I guess they were just kind of like etched into my psyche, where I knew that those things had to happen for me.
Right.
Like I knew that there was no chance of me graduating from high school and not going to college, and nor was that like a desire of mine. Like I would have saw myself as a complete failure if I wouldn't have done that, So yeah, you're right. Those things are drilled into your head, and I just knew, and so that's why it's always been kind of difficult. And I think it's difficult for a lot of women, where it's like after you graduate from college, you just think the logical next step is marriage. Like that's just what is going to happen next. And when that doesn't happen, especially for me, when it didn't happen and still hasn't happened yet, I've been out of college, close 15 years, maybe? Golly, no, has it? Yeah, 2008. No, not 15, but like
13. Oh, I'm 2008
13.
as well.
Yeah, that's long.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. But anyway, being out of college 13 years, it's just like, it hasn't happened yet. It's like, what's wrong? Like there's a disconnect. Like it feels like things aren't as they should be.
Right. So, like, were you allowed to date at all when you were younger?
I was allowed to date. Yeah, I was allowed to date. My mom and I had a very open and transparent relationship, which is shocking because she's an African mother, but I guess the advantage that I had was that she moved to the States at a very young age. Like she moved to America when she was in 11th grade, so, she's Americanized as well. And she always wanted for us to be friends, even though she was very much a disciplinarian. Don't get me wrong, my mother was a mother, like proper, you know, but I was always made to feel comfortable to discuss anything with her. So yeah, my mom knew my boyfriend in high school. My dad didn't, because he wasn't around, but he does. I'm not saying like he wasn't around in a bad way, but he was in Africa, so that's the reason why he didn't know. But yes, to answer your question in short, I was allowed to date.
Okay. Yeah, I was not allowed to date. And I was able to talk to my mom about like people I thought were cute or whatever, but which was actually kind of just thrown on to me because like my friend ratted me out one day, like freshman year of high school, was like, oh, that's the guy Tiffany likes, Billy over there. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So then my mom started talking to me more about it and like, oh, so what do you like about him, blah, blah, blah. But I still wasn't allowed to date until I was 17. But yeah, I didn't actually date until I was 18 and freshman year of college. Yeah, it was just like, just focus on your studies, like boys always going to be there, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't really talked to about like, it was just like, you know, watch out for those boys. They're gonna want to get in your pants. That was really just the only message at all. So yeah, and when I did start dating, it was just like, you know, when you go on a date, never wear a dress, never wear a skirt because it's easy access.
Oh wow. I feel like that's my first time hearing that one.
Yeah. My mom is always like, you always wear pants. You always carry extra money in case you have to run away from them and take a cab. So don't wear heels. Yeah.
Wow.
Like guys are awful basically, and just always watch out and be on guard. So
what was that like though? I mean, what type of opinions were you able to form, like in knowing that, or perceptions?
I mean, I always just thought my mom was like just so crazy. Like she catastrophizes everything. And I was just like, oh, okay, you're overreacting. But it does like seep into your psyche where like, you know, even still now I'll be thinking about, oh, is somebody trying to, you know, I don't know, manipulate me, get over on me or whatever, because like, and it wouldn't have just been my natural thought because I don't really think like that. And I, you know, I like to, you know, trust people and give people the benefit of the doubt. Initially, because, you know, but yeah, like I think I've said before, like I'm not so trusting of people, but that's really what comes from my mom, because like if I'm just in my authentic self, like I trust what people say and I trust like, you know, I don't like to operate from a place of like being guarded and being fearful of stuff. But that's like always what I was taught about like men and relationships, and just always protecting your own stuff and never letting them know what you have. And guys are always, you can't ever count on a man, so you always got to make sure you have your own stuff and be independent, you know. Pretty much guys are worthless. Like it was just that kind of message. So yeah, so I definitely have been super independent in my life. And I sometimes I don't know, I wonder if it's maybe that was just in the cards, or if it was just like because of how I was just brought up. I don't know. Yeah.
Did you ever have any examples in your life growing up of men being like a protector and a provider and actually being of substance?
I mean, I guess my one of my aunts and uncles, so it's my aunt, and then she married who's now my uncle, and they've been together since they were like, I don't even know, like since they were like 20 or 21. I think they got married like 2 months after they met, and they've, you know, been together ever since, been well over 30 years, and he's always looking out for her, and he's definitely a great provider. But we don't see them that much. So,
And that matters.
Yeah.
That matters. Yeah, I asked that because, I didn't. And it's so funny. I didn't, but I still expected it. And I'm not even sure why.
Mm.
Because like with me, like I know my life would have been completely different if I was actually raised in Liberia the way it was intended, right? So like if the war would not have broken out in 1990, like I would have lived in Liberia up until high school and I wouldn't have come to America until college. Maybe we would have come on like summer vacations and stuff like that. And the reason why I mentioned that is because if there was no war, I know I would have grown up around my mother's parents who were married for like over 50 years. And like my grandfather passed away sleeping next to his wife. You know what I
Mm.
mean? I would have been able to really see that and understand that and see what it means to actually stay committed. And don't get me wrong, they had problems. Like I know a lot of the issues that they experienced throughout their marriage, but they still stayed together and they still made it work.
Yeah.
And he was a great father and he was a great husband. Now, being that I grew up in America and my father's parents, they grew up right across the street from me. But I didn't spend much time with them, which is really interesting. But, you know, they were married as well. They were married until they both passed away late into their 80s as well. But I never saw them interact as husband and wife.
Mm.
I know he provided for his family. I know they stayed together, but I never had any actual examples of seeing like a husband protect and provide for his wife. Even though I knew it was happening, but I didn't actually see it with my own eyes. When it came to my parents now, I also feel like if there was no war, my parents most likely would have stayed together. I don't think they would have gotten a divorce. Um, so I would have been able to see that as well. But the reason why I was conditioned to be an independent woman was because while we were here, because my dad hasn't worked for anybody since he was like, he's like 62 now or 63 now. He hasn't worked for anybody since I think he was like 27, maybe. Like he's always been an entrepreneur. So even moving to America when they were still married, he knew he wasn't working for anybody. It's just like, no, I'm not working. And so my mom was the one that went out and worked. And, so to me, that was normal to see a woman working. Not necessarily it wasn't normal for me to see a man not working, but it was normal for me to see a woman working. And since that was the only example that I had, that's just what I innately thought it had to be. Like I knew I had to be the same way, whether my man was working or not, I would also be working. And I knew that I had to be educated and I had to be making an income in order to feel valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did your mom ever talk to you about like, I guess her relationship with your dad or what a relationship should look like or?
No, she didn't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why I knew what a relationship should look like because I never had any examples. Now, I did know that I wanted my marriage to be nothing like my parents' marriage. So I guess that's kind of like what I made up in my mind, because their marriage got very messy and, just so toxic, you know. So no, to answer your question. Mm-mm.
Did your mom ever so you were able to be open with your mom about, having a boyfriend? Like she never give it advice while you were in relationships?
Not until I asked. She was somebody who she didn't want to be in my business. Like she didn't want to be like a nosy mom, she wanted to give me space. And I assume that my mother just assumed as well that she raised me the right way. So I would just automatically know how to operate in a relationship. And I want to talk to her about this because we're so close. We talk all the time. I'm going to ask her, like, why didn't you guide me through dating? You know, because I feel like she really just let me figure it out on my own. And it wasn't until I started to have real life problems, like real problems in relationships, then she would like, you know, try to talk to me. But it's like, dang, I wish I would have known this stuff before.
Right.
But her thing is like, would you have even listened to me? You know, like, would you? She never said this. So I'm not putting words in her mouth, but that's what I'm understanding, is that it's like, girl, you were going to probably just do what you wanted to do anyway. Like, you know, if I would have told you to save yourself from marriage, it would have been like, oh, okay. I know I would have been like, all right, mom, sure, whatever, you know, but I wish I would have listened to that.
Gosh, I wish I would have had a hands-off mom. Hands-off family. It's like so the opposite. Like my family is always up in everyone's business and in everyone's relationship, trying to see what's going on, give unsolicited advice. And my thing is like I don't take advice from people whose life isn't what I want it to look like. What I want mine to look like. I can't exactly say that because then it'd be whatever, quote unquote, disrespectful.
Right.
But yeah, like I mean, even so with like, I mean, my grandma would try to give different dating advice, I suppose. And my grandpa were married for like 50 years or more than that, actually. But I don't know, it's different because then it's like, it's so complicated when what's raising you is like someone else's trauma. So like, I only know my grandparents to be like, you know, this cute little couple or whatever. And like my mom and her siblings, her eight siblings, have like trauma from like the time when my grandpa was an alcoholic for a majority of their childhood. But like he wasn't an alcoholic by the time all the grandkids were born. So it's just but regardless, he always provided. So I'm not even really sure where. Well, I know where that comes from because like my dad wasn't a provider. That's why my mom tells me that. I tried it now to like separate, you know, all these traumatic teachings I've had from what is, you know, from what is good. But like, oh yeah, okay, my uncle and his wife, they've been married for a while. Yeah, for like over 25 years, actually. Oh, they have a good relationship. I go out clubbing with them sometimes. So there's somebody I could probably talk to a bit more. But yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like a lot of this comes from, or I'm sure I feel like what's that show? It's not Blackish, it's the other one that was on Netflix by
Black AF.
Yes, Black AF. How everything was like, it's because of slavery.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is. The whole like, you know, people being separated, and then that moving into like welfare, where it's like you couldn't have the father in the house or you wouldn't get any help, and so you know it kind of forces the woman to be independent. Even with my my brother and stuff. I mean, he was always around in like my nephew's life, but like I remember my sister-in-law had to like say that he wasn't so that they could get help.
Yeah, that's a real thing. My mom told me about that because my mom was a social worker in Baltimore City. So she told me that stuff like that like actually happens. Yeah.
So like I know that's where all this stuff comes from because women have just had to be independent. They had to like provide for themselves, and so that's very much what I do. Like no one's ever helped me do anything, which
Girl,
is
don't I know it?
Yeah. Which can be
my
like
life.
I try to let go of resentment for that. I really do, because like it can be frustrating when I see like my sisters who are like a decade younger than me getting help that I never got, and I'm just like, how are you
from the guys that they're with?
No, from like my parents.
Oh, okay.
I'm just like, how are you still paying their phone bill? They're in their 20s. Like what? Like I wish I had that help. Like, you know. But it's nice to like to be helped and to like be able to be like more feminine and like fall back and like have your whatever, you know, their father pays for their phone bill. But my father's not around. Like I said, he wasn't a provider. So yeah, it's so complex.
Yeah, I know. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know in the Black experience where people can say like, you know, it's because of slavery or, you know, welfare and stuff like that, which is valid. In the Liberian experience, it's because of the war, you know, because with me, I saw so many of my aunts, you know, here working and, you know, hustling and, you know, and because it's like everybody, and I'm going to say everybody's father, like I'm thinking about like my cousins, right? Like all of our fathers were like in Liberia. And then during the war, it's like the war is happening, but all of our fathers are there working, quote unquote. But it's like, how are you guys really working during a war? But our moms are over here like, you know, waking up at ungodly hours, you know, working however many jobs, you know, taking care of all the kids and all this stuff. And it's like, really, they were just over there living life. Like they were just doing them, you know, they were, in my opinion, running away from their real responsibilities, which is their wife and their mother. Right. So I'm just saying all of this to say, like, I saw my mom and my aunts like working and hustling every single day of my life. So to me, that was normal. So it's like, that's what I'm supposed to do. Even when I'm married, I'm still going to be working. Like I just now understood the concept of like, or even got comfortable saying out loud that I want to be a stay-at-home mom within like the past like year, maybe year and a half, you know, where in my 20s, I could not even think about anything like that. Like, why would I want to do? Because you're brainwashed into thinking that you have to work, but it's actually the man's responsibility to work and your responsibility. Now, if you're in a traditional mindset, everybody's different. I'm not going to say that these are like the set in stone rules. But for me, being the type of woman that I am, I want to be in the home because it's like I've been working since I was 15. You know what I mean? Like I've paid my debt. Like I have done it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so now I really do want to lean back and have that man take that responsibility. And it's like, I don't even want to do stuff like shovel snow and take out the trash. And like, it's like, no, I know how to do it. I've been doing it all my life. You know what I mean? But I don't want those responsibilities anymore. Like it's time for a man to do that. Like, you know, but I'm just saying that like, because so many women are still stuck in that independent mindset and it's really draining.
Yeah.
It was for me, at least. I'll speak from my own experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I've been saying I want to be like a stay-at-home wife and mother for like at least 5 years because it's like, it's not really working is just not for me.
It's not for me. And the thing is, and it wasn't for my mom either, because before the war, like my mom had like 2 side businesses that were just kind of like running, you know, on their own. And she was at home taking care of me and, you know, taking care of the house and stuff like that. But her circumstances changed. So she had to get into that, you know, independent woman mentality. So I just wonder what I would have been like if I would have grown up in Liberia. I know I would be so different. I would most likely be married by now. I'll most likely be married by now because what I've also noticed is that me being independent and me being a breadwinner has also affected a few of my romantic relationships as well in a negative way. You know, one example is, you know, one of my first relationships in Liberia, he was a student and I was working and you know, I didn't care that he wasn't making any money. Like literally, it's like, I'll take care of everything. So I was operating in my masculine. Like, I don't care. Like, you know, but then it came to a point where he started to resent me because he wasn't making any money. So he didn't feel like a man, even though it's not something, I didn't do anything to him on purpose, but the circumstances, you know, made him to start to feel less of a man, you know, so that's affected me for sure.
Yeah. So I'm anticipating navigating that in my relationship now, because so like our money is just different. So my fiance is in the Dominican Republic, so our money is just completely different. It's like $1 to like 58 of their
Mm-hmm.
pesos. So it's like I make more money. And for me, like we're looking at places now, and I'm just like, I don't have a problem like paying, the rent over there, because it'll be less than what I pay now.
Mm-hmm.
But I know like I kind of have to fall back a little bit, because like I can't just be out of like his price range, because like he's very much a man and wants to like take care of things, but it has to be like, this compromise, because like I want to make sure I'm in some place that I like and I'm comfortable, um but I can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna pay, don't worry about it, I'm gonna pay the rent, because like, yeah, like it wouldn't really fly. Like he's very like much masculine, which I appreciate. Like from the beginning he's just like, I'm gonna take care of you, like I'm gonna do whatever I need to take care of you, because it's like I never had that. And crazy, because I haven't ever seen that, where I haven't ever heard that from anyone around me, where the guy's just like, I'm gonna take care of my wife. It's always like, no, like she has to be bringing in her own stuff too, and she has to be like, sorry, that
Yeah,
like reminds me of like The Bachelorette.
that is BS, yo. Even hearing that makes me sick to my stomach now.
Yeah,
Whereas before it used to be so normal. Like, yeah, of
yeah,
course, 50-50. I'm gonna bring in and you're gonna. Hearing that now, even thinking about a man like asking me like, what do you bring to the table? Like it's like,
right.
ugh, like I'm gonna throw up. Like,
And I say that reminds me of The Bachelorette, because like Tasha, who was the last Bachelorette, anyway, she was married before, and like her husband was saying some BS, like trying to like justify why he cheated on her when they were married, saying that like, oh, and she wasn't bringing in as much as I thought she was going to be. And I was just like, I was so confused. I'm like, that's the reason why you cheated.
that's not the reason. He's lying through his
Right.
teeth.
But the fact like that was even something, like she doesn't have to be bringing anything. You
She
are the
doesn't.
provider.
You are the provider, and it's crazy because, and I'm not, this is not to bash men at all, because I do not believe in bashing men. I'm just stating that Black men, especially, the fact that majority of them in America, let me not say majority, I don't have the stats, a good amount of men, Black men in America, are raised by women. So they're mothered, right? So they're used to being taken care of by a woman. They don't have the example of a man taking care of the family.
Yeah.
So that's why they're brought up thinking that it's okay. Like you're supposed to. Like I saw my mom work 3 jobs. Well, bro, that was your mom. That's not going to be me. Like,
okay. I
sorry.
will say that man was a white man, though.
Oh,
which was surprising.
That's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah,
but no, I don't believe in 50-50. I don't get me wrong. I'm always going to be bringing in money, but don't expect for me to bring in 50% of the income. And I do also believe in gender roles, certain gender roles. We're kind of going off topic here, but I'm just saying that where I believe that if the man is the provider, then he's the one who's taking care of the household. He's the one who's paying all the bills, utilities, electricity, like everything, taking care of the cars, everything like that. And then for me, I'm more so taking care of like the home. So whether that's, buying all of the furniture in the home, decorating the home. If I need help, I'm paying for the housekeeper. Hey, I'll pay for daycare, stuff like that. Things that have to do with the actual family. Like those are the things that I'll pay for. But, everything else, that's on you, husband. That's why you have that title.
that is. Yeah, isn't it from like house? Husband is like from house in German, I think. I think that's what it is. I think I looked that up recently because I was just like, such an odd word. But I'm a little looser on gender roles, not so much. Like it was funny because like right before just like an hour ago, my sister was like, poor dad, he just came home and from work and he has to bring in the trash buckets or whatever. I was like, that's his job. I was
Right.
like, that's his job as a man. And she's like, you saying that, who is not a believer in gender roles? I'm like, I never said I didn't believe in gender roles. I was like, we have built-in gender roles. So the day that a man is carrying a baby, then we can talk about switching gender roles because like there are built-in ones.
Totally.
So if I'm carrying the baby, the man can take out the trash. So,
no, seriously. I am grateful though. Like, I'm grateful that I've been able to have the independent woman experience
yeah.
in my earlier years. You know, I think it sets a nice firm foundation. And then essentially you are bringing something to the table. You know, you're showing that you have work ethic, you're showing that you're educated, you're showing that you've been able to achieve, that you've been ambitious, you're determined. You know, like, these are really important characteristics to have as a human being, whether you're a male or a female, you know. But I wish I could have learned earlier, like, even if it was in my 20s, even if it was right after college, I wish I could have learned the importance of male and female, like the dynamic of male and female, especially in romantic relationships and husband and wife. I just never had any examples. And honestly, I don't even have any real life examples right now. So I'm just still kind of like putting it together as I go. Like, I'm kind of just like looking at YouTubers who I kind of relate to, you know, and believe in, you know, even though it's hard these days with all the stuff that's going on, but, you know, who I feel like genuinely connected to. But I'm just circling back again to how important it is for parents who are listening, who are married. Like, it's important for your children to see that dynamic when they're young, so they can understand it and be able to apply it when they're older. I wish I had that.
Yeah. I'm definitely grateful that I have the experience of, like, I know that I'm totally like self-sufficient and you know, I can, you know, handle whatever I need. But it is like hard to then, once you're in a relationship, kind of go backwards, I guess, or scale down, or like learn to be softer or something. I mean, I remember when I was in college, my boyfriend in college was just like, oh, you're just too independent. I feel like you don't even ask me for anything. And it's just like, well, I've never asked anybody for anything. So it's just
Never.
like, it's really like hard to like switch when all of a sudden there's somebody there. Yeah, I wish there were like, maybe there are classes on this.
There are definitely classes on being like operating in your feminine, like, for sure. And I've been listening to a lot of little like Clubhouse stuff. I follow a few people on Instagram, you know, because it really is an art. Like, it's an art. It really is. And like, for me, I know I wasn't taught to ask anybody for anything. Like, I was, you know, Chiquita knew not to ask anybody for anything. The only person you ask something of is from your parents, from your mom or your dad. That's it, you know? So like, even in like my later 20s, early 30s, I was having a conversation with my female friends, and I was talking about how like a guy's never really bought me anything. A guy's never taken me on a trip or anything like that. And they were shocked, like, what? Never? And I'm like, never. But, you know, I always wonder if it's because, like, unbeknownst to me, my masculine energy was so prominent. Like, I couldn't attract a masculine man to even want to do those things for me. Because majority of the men, when I think back on it now, even though I thought they were masculine, they're more so beta males that I was attracting. Like, you know, so it's like, yeah, beta males, they can't do that type of stuff for you.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me too. Like, I was just like, how are these girls getting guys to like buy them these things and take them places? Like, that's never happened.
Never.
Like, I think from like one guy I dated for a while, like the one thing he ever gave me was a pair of socks for Christmas. Like, really. And I don't think my last boyfriend even bought me anything, actually, except for like dinner. But yeah, like, I've never been like even though it's like my love language is not gifts. Like I was never given anything from anyone until like my fiance now. Still haven't gotten a trip.
Working on that.
But I just could not understand. Like I have this one friend who, I mean, at least just in the last 2 years has had like 4 guys take her places. And I'm just like, how?
They got something that I'm still working on it. Like I'm still, and so I was on the cusp of having it happen quite recently, but still just didn't make it. I wasn't able to make it. A trip was about to happen, but you know, but it's all good. It's all good. It's coming. It's coming. One day it's gonna come, you know, and it's interesting because like I literally have to train myself, and I'm very intentional about training myself to be feminine. Like when I feel myself trying to do something masculine, like I have to like pull it back, you know. Yeah. I really do try my best, and bringing it back to like being educated and independent and stuff like that. Another way that I've noticed that it can work against you is, you know, me, I'm like, I lived in Africa for 10 years and I've owned several businesses, and I still like to sell, like come up with products and services and sell them. And, you know, I do meditations and, you know, like I have all this kind of stuff that's going on for me. I'm like a social person, and, you know, I like to be out and about and like hang out with people and stuff like that. And he's very much not like that. And I was told by an older woman who I was like talking to him about our situation. And she was like, you know what, like, I think that you came off as like too much for him. Like your life is too, like, he doesn't see a place for himself in your life because it's so great. For lack of a better, I can't think of something else to say. So I'm just going to say because my life's not, I mean, I'm grateful. My life's not great, but, you know, so she was like, so you might have to be mindful of that when you're interacting with men, because so basically you're telling me like I need to like level down or like put a shadow over these great things that I'm doing. And that didn't sit well with me. That didn't sit well with me at all, because it's like, I feel as though I can still be feminine, but still have these other really great parts about my life that are worth being talked about and being excited about. You know?
Yeah. My cousin was going through like, I guess she's still learning to balance that too, because for the last few guys she talked to, she would until I guess the current guy she's talking to, but she would just like not really say a lot about what she was doing or really did in her life. When they're like, oh, what have you, you know, I guess maybe if they ask what have you accomplished or what kind of things have you done, and like she would just glaze over all these things that she did, because she's just like, it's just, I've just seen it be too much for people or too intimidating. Like when I tell them that I lived in France and I did all this other stuff, and there has to be a way. I mean, it shouldn't be intimidating. I guess the right guy is not going to think it's intimidating.
Right. Exactly. The right guy. And a guy, and how do I say this? Because I'm always trying to be politically correct, always. But maybe a guy that is also an entrepreneur and is also college educated and is also cultured, rather than a guy that isn't. Right. So I guess that would look like too much to handle to somebody who doesn't have those same experiences.
Right. Or at least those ambitions.
Right.
Too. Yeah. Cause like my fiance, he's like very ambitious, but he hasn't traveled anywhere except for like the neighboring country, you know, with Haiti. But he like thinks it's great that I've been to all these places, and he's like really looking forward to like us traveling together. And he like wants to do all these other things that I've done or expressed interest in, and he's not intimidated by it, which is the great thing, because that's always been a thing. You're so intimidating, and my sisters are even like, yeah, you're just really intimidating. My friends are intimidated by you. I'm like, that's their problem then.
Right. I've gotten that too. I've gotten that a lot, like that men are intimidated by me, you know. But what's so crazy, I was just talking to my friend about this the other day, or just earlier today, actually, like the Dusties, how come they're not intimidated? Like the ones that literally have like nothing going for themselves. Like, I mean, I guess because they see you as a meal ticket, I guess that must be what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has to be what it is. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Because some guys really just want to, I mean, I've had like a friend tell me he wants a sugar mama and that I should be his sugar mama. And I was just like, excuse you. I don't know what you think this is. Yeah, no. So yeah, some guys, the same way women want to be stay-at-home moms, guys want to be stay-at-home, whatever, stay-at-home husbands or whatever. But like, that's not your role, sir.
Yeah, it's
so.
not. We got to do better. Our generation's got to do better, like for sure. We've got to do better. But once again, got to see these examples, because I didn't know that I didn't start to shift my mindset until I was actually able to see it and hear it and understand it and know that it actually works. It's like, you know what? That's what I want. That's exactly what I want. And I think deep down inside, I've always wanted that, but it's not accepted by society to say that you want to be a submissive woman and allow your man to lead your life. But it is for me now, like, yes, I do. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Say what you want about me. I don't care. When I'm living a life of peace, then, say what you want to say. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I've really realized in the last few years is like, yeah, I'm definitely ready for that new phase. I'm definitely ready to like not be this independent person anymore. Like for the last probably 4 years, I've said to people like, I'm just so tired of making these decisions by myself.
Exactly. That's the word, Tiffany. Tired.
Yeah.
Tired.
Yeah.
Tired and drained. And for me, like I'm so tired. Like I was not built to do this life alone.
Yeah.
Hey listeners, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. So let me explain. Because first, it's free, which is one of the main reasons why I chose it. Let's be real. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And I use both ways in order to edit this podcast. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. So it can be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more podcast platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's really everything that you need to make a podcast in one place. Like I'm on here doing transitions, and it's just so simple, adding background music to things. Like it is so easy. So if you're ready to start doing your podcast right now, just download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
That was also a further realization I had when I was in the Dominican Republic last month, because I was always somebody, I loved traveling solo. I preferred it, but this was like probably the first solo trip I've taken in a few years. And so like most of the time I was by myself because I was in a different city from where my fiance lives. And I was just like, yeah, this isn't for me anymore. I was just like,
yep.
I'm so tired. I'm really tired of this, actually. I don't think I'll do this again. It was just like so crazy because I used to love traveling by myself because I don't like waiting around for people. I don't like having to like compromise on what I want to do on vacation. But I was just like, no, I'm good. I'm good now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see why that angry Black woman narrative exists, because I would be angry too. If I had to work 3 jobs and take care of 4 kids by myself, like,
yeah.
How can you be happy doing that? There's no time for you. There's no time for you to pour into yourself, love on yourself, like, and you have to be able to love yourself to be able to attract love, like genuine love. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So of course she's angry. Look at all the stuff that look at all the weights that are on her.
Yeah. So how do you think we can start, I guess, work on starting this kind of dialogue within like our community, within the Black community, because it's just, this has been an ongoing thing for a long time, for decades, generations. Like, how can we, I mean, I guess just start with us and our children and the children around us.
Yeah, just start having conversations about it. And we would have to be the generation to attract healthy marriages and show that to our kids and our nieces and our nephews, you know, and our kids' friends, you know, because seeing is believing.
Yeah.
That is it. Seeing is believing, you know, but I'm just so grateful for all these like feminine coaches and stuff like that that are really out here now, really trying to push the narrative. You know, there's a lot of great conversations happening on Clubhouse, YouTube, Instagram, you know, and if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would be. You know, I'm starting this transition now and I feel really, 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 really good about it. So having the conversations and believing and not trying to knock other people down because you don't relate to it, right? Because I know in particular, there's a brand that I love called Women Who Transcend, and they're constantly pushing the feminine energy narrative, you know, of a man being protector and provider and a woman being a nurturer. And they get a lot of backlash. You know, there's a lot of women that like cuss them out on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, you know, because, you know, but it's like, this is my lane. If you don't subscribe to it, that's perfectly fine. Continue to do what you're doing, you know, but don't knock it down, because then you could possibly be discouraging someone else who really needs this information and who it's really for. You know, you could really be discouraging them from it. So just let everybody be in their own lane. I will be in my feminine energy lane for sure.
Right.
Catch me over there.
Yeah. Any like final words, any final thoughts?
My final word and my final thought would be for women to really do their research on what it means to be a modern woman and a traditional woman. I'll say that again. Do your research into understanding what it means to be a modern woman and a traditional woman. And whichever one that you resonate with, go ahead and study and understand that. Get power in it. And to me, once you have that foundation, then you could attract the relationship that is really out there for you.